Piney was throbbing like a son of a gun, and my mouth felt dry as sandpaper. I asked my daughter minus law for a glass of water, and what I got back was a scream that still makes my blood boil. Get it yourself, you useless old man. This isn't a nursing home. My son Ryan just looked down at his phone. I clenched my jaw, pushed myself up despite the pain shooting through my leg, and walked to the kitchen. I didn't say a word. That night at 2 a.m., I dialed a number I'd kept in my wallet for years. Not to complain, but to get my house back. And with it, my dignity. My name's Kevin Thompson. I'm 67 years old, and I spent 40 years swinging a hammer and running construction crews. Built this house with my own 2 hands after my wife died 12 years ago. Thought I'd spend my golden years here in peace. Boy, was I wrong about that. Let me tell you how I got here. After Sarah passed from that cancer, I threw myself into work. Had to keep busy. You know? Ryan was 23 then, just out of college, trying to figure out life. This old house we'd been renting was falling apart, and I figured we both needed a fresh start. So I bought a piece of land on the edge of town, nothing fancy. Just a 1/4 acre with some old oak trees. For 2 years, every weekend and vacation day, I was out there with my tools. Ryan would come help sometimes, learning to use a level, how to frame a wall properly. Those were good days. Father and son, building something together. I taught him that a man takes pride in what he creates with his hands. The foundation, the framing, the electrical work, even the oak kitchen cabinets I made from scratch. Every board, every nail, every pipe in that house has my sweat on it. The house isn't huge, maybe 1,800 square feet, but it's solid. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a kitchen that opens to the living room, and a back deck that faces the sunset. I designed it myself, pulled the permits, passed every inspection on the first try. When we moved in, Ryan said it felt like a real home for the first time since his mom died. That made all those blisters and sore backs worth it. Ryan got married to Ashley about 5 years later. Nice enough girl at first. Seemed to make him happy. They had their own apartment across town, both working decent jobs. Ashley managed some retail store. Ryan was doing warehouse work. Wife was good. I'd have them over for Sunday dinners. We'd watch football. Normal family stuff. Then 3 years ago, everything changed. Ryan's warehouse laid off half their crew, including him. Ashley's store cut her hours down to almost nothing. They were struggling, behind on rent, stressed out. What kind of father watches his kids suffer when he's got a spare bedroom and a paid-off house? Just until we get back on our feet, Ashley said when I offered to let them stay. Maybe a few months, just to save up some money. Ryan looked embarrassed but grateful. I told them to take all the time they needed. Family helps family, right? The first few months weren't bad. Ashley would cook dinner sometimes, help with groceries. Ryan would fix things around the house, mow the lawn. We'd all watch TV together in the evenings. I started to think having them around might not be so lonely after all. But gradually, things started shifting. Ashley began rearranging the living room furniture without asking. Nothing major at first, just moving things around to make the space flow better. Then she decided my old construction site photos were too depressing and took them down. When I asked where they went, she said they were safely stored in the garage. The food changed too. Suddenly the house had to be stocked with expensive organic vegetables I'd never heard of. Fancy coffee that cost 3 times what I usually bought. Craft beer for Ryan that ran $15. A 6- pack. My budget went from $80 a week for groceries to $150 easy. Ashley started referring to different areas as my kitchen or our living room. She'd complain if I left my work boots by the front door like I'd done for 10 years. It looks trashy, she'd say. What if people come over? People like who? I wanted to ask. This was my house. My front door, my boots. Ryan got a new warehouse job after about 6 months, but the pay was less than his old position. Ashley picked up some freelance social media work, but that was hit or miss. Mostly miss. They were still living in my spare room, eating my food, using my utilities, but the gratitude was fading fast. Ashley started talking about updating the house. The kitchen needed new appliances. The living room needed a fresh coat of paint. The bathroom could use modern fixtures. All of it would cost thousands I didn't have and didn't want to spend on changes I didn't want. When I'd say no, she'd get this look like I was being unreasonable. The breaking point came that Tuesday afternoon in July. The heat that day was brutal. I was in my recliner with my left leg propped up, arthritis telling me a storm was coming. My throat felt like sandpaper. The water pitcher was right there on the coffee table, about 3 feet from where Ashley was lounging on my couch. My daughter Law had her feet up on the table I'd made from oak, scrolling through her phone. Ryan was next to her, watching TV. I cleared my throat and said, "Ashley, honey, could you hand me that water, please?" The silence lasted maybe 2 seconds, but it felt like an hour. Ashley let out this long dramatics, I'd asked her to donate a kidney. She put down her phone real slow and looked at me with eyes that could freeze hell over. "Get it yourself." "You useless old man," she shouted. "This isn't a nursing home, and I'm not your personal servant." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I looked at Ryan, the boy I'd raised by myself after his mother died in that car accident. The kid I taught to throw a baseball, helped with homework every night, worked double shifts to put through college. He didn't even look up from the TV. Just sat there like nothing happened. That silence from my son hurt worse than Ashley's screaming. I gritted my teeth and pushed myself up. My knee made this grinding sound and pain shot up my leg, but I wasn't giving her the satisfaction of seeing me wince. I walked to the coffee table, picked up that pitcher with hands that were shaking from anger, and poured myself a glass. I drank it standing there, tasting something bitter underneath the water. "Good night," I said in a voice like gravel. I turned my back on both of them and walked down the hall to my bedroom, shut the door and turned the lock. First time I'd ever locked my bedroom door in this house. Always figured if Ryan needed something, he'd know where to find me. That night, I realized the Ryan who needed his old man was long gone. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the closet. Up on the top shelf, behind some old winter coats, was a metal toolbox I hadn't opened in years. Not the one in the garage with my wrenches and screwdrivers. This one held something more important than tools. It held the proof of everything I'd worked for. I dragged over the stepladder, climbed up slow and careful, and brought that box down like I was handling explosives. In a way, I guess I was. Inside were the deed to this house, clear and paid for. The mortgage papers from when I first bought the land. The receipts from every major purchase I'd made building this place. And there was something else to minus a notebook I'd started keeping about 6 months ago when Ashley's demands started getting out of hand. Call it a construction worker's habit, but I always document my materials and expenses. I opened that notebook and ran my finger down the pages. Every grocery bill, every utility payment while they ran the AC nonstop. The $300 car repair for Ashley's SUV. The premium cable she insisted we needed. The credit card I'd added her name to that racked up $2,000 in clothes and restaurants. 3 years of being a wallet with legs in my own home. But there was more. I'd started writing down the other stuff too. Ashley throwing out my construction photos. Moving my boots because they looked trashy. Every little comment designed to make me smaller in my own house. I looked at the clock. 17 a.m. Outside, the neighborhood was dead quiet. Inside my head, something was wide awake for the first time in years. I picked up my cell phone and scrolled to a name I'd saved but never called. Rodriguez, attorney. I'd met Carlos Rodriguez at a community dinner about 5 years back. Nice guy, straight shooter, specialized in elder law and property rights. He'd given me his card and said if I ever needed legal help, call him day or night. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. "Rodriguez here," came a groggy voice. "Carlos, this is Kevin Thompson. Sorry for calling so late, but I need help getting my house back." There was a pause. Then I heard rustling like he was sitting up in bed. "Kevin? You okay? Someone trying to hurt you?" Not physically, I said. But they're killing me slowly. And I'm done with it. Hold on. Let me turn on the light. Okay. Talk to me. So I did. I told him about Ashley screaming, about Ryan's silence, about 3 years of being treated like a burden. I told him about the notebook, the receipts, the deed with my name on it, about feeling like a stranger in my own living room. When I finished, Carlos was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, Kevin, you know this is going to get ugly, right? Family stuff always does. They're going to fight you, probably say you're not thinking straight, maybe even try to get you declared incompetent. Let them try, I said. I've got all my marbles, plus documentation going back 40 years. What I don't have anymore is patience. All right then. Meet me at my office at 9 a.m. Bring everything minus deed, mortgage papers, that notebook, bank statements, all of it. We're going to prepare an eviction notice. An eviction notice? For my own son? Kevin, listen to me. Your son is married. He's not a kid anymore. And his wife has been treating you like garbage in your own home. Sometimes the only language people understand is legal language. You built that house. You own it. And you have every right to decide who lives there. I hung up and sat in the dark. This house held so many memories. The deck where Ryan learned to walk. The kitchen where I taught him to cook. The living room where we watched football until Ashley decided she didn't like sports. Now those rooms felt like a battleground where I was losing. The next morning, I was up at 5 a.m. like always. Made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my notebook and toolbox. When Ashley appeared at 10:30. She took one look at my papers and sneered. What's all this? Playing accountant. Just reviewing expenses, I said. Don't hurt yourself thinking too hard, she said. Ryan, where's breakfast? Your father's being weird again. Ryan appeared, rubbing his eyes. Morning, Dad. Everything okay? I looked at my son. What had he gotten so tired minus looking? When had he stopped being the confident young man I'd raised? Everything's fine, son. Just taking care of business. After they left minus Ashley to the gym she couldn't afford, Ryan to his warehouse job minus, I gathered up my papers and drove to Carlos's office. The man was waiting for me with coffee and the kind of serious expression that meant we weren't here to talk about fishing. Let's see what we're working with, he said. I laid it all out on his desk. Deed with my name only. Mortgage papers showing I'd paid off the house 5 years ago. Bank statements proving I'd been supporting to healthy adults who contributed nothing. The notebook with every insult, every demand. Every time I'd been made to feel like a stranger in my own home. Carlos whistled low. This is thorough. You sure you never worked as a paralegal? Construction foreman, I said. Same skills, different materials. He flipped through the pages, stopping to read certain entries. She really said you were too old to drink regular coffee, among other things. That's just what I wrote down. There's plenty more I didn't bother recording. Carlos leaned back in his chair. Kevin, I'm going to ask you one more time. You sure about this? Once we serve papers, there's no going back. Your relationship with your son might never recover. I thought about Ryan's silence when Ashley screamed at me. I thought about 3 years of being invisible in my own house. I thought about that water pitcher 3 feet away that might as well have been on the moon. Carlos, I spent 40 years building things. Houses, buildings, a life for my family. I'm not going to spend whatever years I have left watching it all get torn down by people who don't respect what it took to create it. Then let's get to work. The legal process was straightforward. Carlos explained that since there was no written lease, no rent being paid, no legal right to occupancy, this was simply a case of guests overstaking their welcome. We'll file a formal eviction notice, Carlos said. In this state, you have to give 30 days notice to family members, even if they're not paying rent. It's called unlawful detainer. After 30 days, if they're not out, we can get a court order and have the sheriff remove them. What if they fight it? With what? They have no legal claim to the property. The house is in your name, paid for with your money. They're not tenants because they don't pay rent. At best, they're guests who've worn out their welcome. He started typing up the papers. Now, they might try to claim you're not mentally competent to make this decision. That's a common tactic in elder abuse cases. Elder abuse? Kevin, what you've described minus the verbal abuse, financial exploitation, isolation in your own home minus that textbook elder abuse. Fact that it's coming from family doesn't make it any less serious. I'd never thought of it that way before. But sitting in that office, looking at 3 years of documentation, I started to see the pattern, the gradual erosion of respect, the slow takeover of my space, the way Ashley talked to me like I was a burden instead of the man keeping a roof over her head. How long will this take? I asked. We can have the papers ready today. Service will happen within 48 hours. Then it's 30 days from service. And if they don't leave after 30 days, then we go to court, get a judgment. And the sheriff escorts them out. But most people leave before it gets to that point. Nobody wants an eviction on their record. While Carlos prepared the paperwork, I thought about what I was about to do. 40-2 years ago, I'd brought Ryan home from the hospital, taught him to ride a bike, helped with homework, cheered at his games. After Sarah died, it was just us against the world. Now I was legally evicting him, but as I thought about it, I realized this wasn't really about Ryan. This was about Ashley, and about Ryan's failure to stand up for his father. A grown man doesn't let anyone disrespect his parents. 2 hours later, I walked out with copies of the eviction notice. The legal language was formal and cold, but clear. Kevin Thompson demands that Ryan Thompson and Ashley Thompson vacate the premises within 30 days. The papers were served the next afternoon by a professional process server. I watched through the kitchen window as he rang the doorbell. Ashley answered in her workout clothes. The server was all business. Are you Ashley Thompson? Yes. Who are you? I have legal documents requiring your signature. I saw Ashley's face change from annoyed to confused to alarmed. She called for Ryan, who appeared behind her looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. Are you Ryan Thompson? Yeah, that's me. I need both of you to sign for these documents. Hey. They both signed, took their copies, and the server left. Through the window, I watched them on the porch reading. Ashley's face went from pale to red to purple. Ryan just stood there with his mouth open. They came into the house like they were walking through a minefield. This is insane. Ashley shouted, waving the papers. You can't just throw us out on the street. Actually, I can. I said from my chair. It's my house. Says so right on the deed. Where are we supposed to go? We don't have anywhere else. That's not my problem anymore. You've got 30 days to figure it out. Ryan finally found his voice. Dad, come on. We're family. I looked at him steady and said, Son, family doesn't treat family the way your wife treats me. And family sure doesn't stand by and watch it happen. Ashley tried a different approach then. The tears started flowing, and her voice got all soft and pleading. Kevin, please. I was just stressed the other day. I didn't mean what I said about the water. We can work this out. You meant every word, I said. And you've been meaning it for 3 years. The only difference is now there are consequences. That night, I heard them on the phone with relatives, asking for help. Ashley was painting me as a crazy old man who'd snapped for no reason. Ryan was quieter, but I caught enough to know he was telling a different story. He knew why this was happening. The next few weeks were tense. Ashley tried everything. First came tears and apologies, cornering me in the kitchen, talking about stress and how sorry she was. When that didn't work, she switched to anger, accusing me of being cruel. How can you throw your own family out? She'd demand. What would Sarah think? That one hit hard, but I held my ground. Sarah would have understood. She'd be ashamed to see how Ryan let his wife treat his father. Around day 10, Ashley tried cleaning obsessively, doing dishes, attempting to cook dinner. But it felt forced, like a performance. Too little, too late. The worst part was watching Ryan struggle. He tried talking to me when Ashley was out, making awkward conversation about work, but he never said what I needed to hear minus that he was sorry for not standing up for me. On day 15, Ashley brought her mother over. Mrs. Patterson sat in my living room telling me how disappointed she was in my behavior. Ashley says you're putting them out for no reason. She said. Did Ashley tell you what she said when I asked for water? Did she mention 3 years of verbal abuse? The woman's face went red. They left shortly after that. Around day 20, the moving boxes started appearing. Ashley stacked them in the living room like she was building a fortress. She packed angrily, slamming things around, making sure I could hear every drawer being emptied and every closet being cleared out. Ryan helped quietly, and I could see the wheels turning in his head. Maybe he was finally starting to understand that this wasn't just about one incident with a glass of water. This was about 3 years of watching his father become invisible in his own home. On day 25, Ashley made one last attempt. She sat me down with tears and a prepared speech about being young and selfish, about being family now. Can't we find a way to work this out? Maybe pay rent, or I could help more. I stopped her. Ashley, you had 3 years to be respectful. You didn't need an eviction notice to know that calling someone useless in his own home was wrong. Moving day came on a Saturday morning. Ashley had rented a truck, and friends helped load boxes. I stayed in the kitchen, drinking coffee and watching through the window. The house emptied of their belongings. The expensive food left the refrigerator. Ashley's decorations were packed away. When Ryan came to say goodbye, he stood in the kitchen doorway looking lost. Dad, he started. Then stopped. I know, son, I said. You're going with her. She's your wife. He nodded miserably. I should have said something. When she yelled at you about the water, I should have stood up for you. It was the first time he'd acknowledged what had really happened. Yes, I said simply. You should have. I was scared it would make things worse between us all. Ryan, sometimes making things worse is the only way to make them better. A man protects his family, and that includes protecting his father from disrespect. We hugged then, awkwardly. But it was something. When the truck pulled away, I stood in my empty living room and felt the house breathe for the first time in 3 years. The silence wasn't lonely minus, it was spacious. Clean. Mine. I spent the rest of the day walking through each room, reclaiming my space. I moved my work boots back to their spot by the front door. I hung my construction photos back up in the hallway. I put my coffee maker back where I wanted it, set to brew the strong coffee I preferred. That evening, I called Carlos to let him know everything had gone smoothly. How are you feeling about it all? He asked. Like a man who owns his own house again, I said. Like someone who truly remembers what respect feels like. 3 months later, Ryan called. He'd found a better job with a construction company. He and Ashley had rented a modest apartment. They were making it work, but it was tight. Dad, he said, I wanted to apologize properly. For not defending you. For letting things go on so long. I chose wrong. You chose the easy path, I said. Sometimes the right thing is the hard thing. Ashley's in counseling now. She's starting to understand some things about how she treats people. It's slow going, but it's something. Good for her, and good for you for recognizing there was a problem. We talk every couple of weeks now. Ryan comes by every other Sunday, usually alone. We sit on the deck. I built and drink coffee and talk about work, about life, about everything except Ashley unless he brings her up first. I still live in the house I built with my own 2 hands. When I need water now, I get it myself minus not because someone yelled at me too, but because I choose to do so. That makes all the difference in the world. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing completely alone for a while, but it's better to be alone with your dignity than surrounded by people who don't respect you. I learned that at age 67, which proves you're never too old to remember who you truly are. My house is quiet now, but it's my quiet. The rooms feel bigger, the air cleaner. I started having neighbors over for coffee sometimes, people who see me as Kevin Thompson, the guy who built this place board by board, not as some useless old man in the way. That water I asked for was never about being thirsty at all. It was about being seen as human. Took me a lawyer and 30 days to get that back, but it was worth every single penny. A man's home really is his castle. Sometimes you just have to remind people exactly who holds the keys. Sometimes the people who take the most from you are the ones who respect you the least, and that's exactly when you need to remind them that kindness has limits. A man who built his own house with his own hands should never have to beg for basic dignity in his own living room, that's not family. That's exploitation with a blood relation.